Welcome to Color Me Home, a podcast about paint
and decorating
and home improvement
and creative projects.
and pretty much whatever else comes up in the conversation. I'm Dan.
And I'm Betsy. Thanks for tuning in. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how to make sure that the colors you choose for your next project are colors you love.
See, in our first episode, we talked about ways to find inspiration for your next color scheme. And that's all well and good. But finding interesting, intriguing color schemes is one thing. Finding colors you love is just a little bit different. Now today, we're going to discuss some concepts that you can use to make sure that the next gallon of paint that you purchase looks perfect in your home.
It may sound tricky, but it's really not. Let's get started. Now, let's talk about this thing we call a color portfolio. This is Dan's favorite thing to talk about because he came up with the idea.
Other things I like to talk about, but yes, this is a good one.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us about it?
All right, a color folder or a color portfolio is simply a 3-ring binder, maybe.
Right.
Maybe it's an accordion folder. Maybe
I like
it's
those. Exactly.
It'd be nice if it was a small enough one that you could put it in, if you're a woman, a purse or a satchel,
yes,
or a European carry-all that you can carry with you. The idea behind that is just that you've got it with you when you find something. You can put it in there.
Right.
But anyway, you get this folder, and what you're doing is you're just filling it with all these different sources of inspiration, all these different pictures, all these different fabric samples.
Yes.
You know, you talked about previously we were talking. Honestly, let's just get this on the table right now because this is going to come out at some point. Somebody, one of the two of us, we don't want to name names because I don't want anybody to feel bad.
The one you've heard on the radio before, probably. Who knows how to do this?
Somebody didn't record this podcast correctly. So this is round 2.
The first time we did it.
Yeah, and it was really good.
It was.
We're on the second try. Somebody feels very badly about that.
Thank goodness. And somebody lost major points for
Somebody, well, they don't even know about the points. Because,
that's right.
See, we've got this, I don't know what you'd call it. It's not a game, but Betsy challenged me. Did you challenge me or I challenged you?
I think you challenged me.
To a duel of wits.
Yes.
To the death? No, or to 10. Maybe to 10.
I don't think it really matters.
I lost anyway.
But you lost.
I failed to record the podcast. So we're in this duel of wits. Betsy was up 3-0.
Yes.
And by not recording the podcast, she instantly got 7 points, which put her over the top for victory.
Right.
She'll get a trophy later. We're very proud of her.
Sweet.
I'm not going to get anything.
Is it bedazzled?
It's everything you want. You just write it down. You'll get it. So we're trying to finish this. Do it again.
Right.
So back to the color folder.
Yes.
An accordion folder where you can put all the colors that you find. Fabric samples that you run into in the fabric stores.
Yes.
You talked about how if you find something in the store, they'll give you a sample if you ask.
If you ask them, there are some stores that already have them pre-cut by their roll. You know, you can take a little square, especially fabrics for furniture and things like that. They have a little bag next to it that has a little chunk already cut off that they've pre-cut. Otherwise, just ask them. You know, say, I think I like this fabric and I might want to get it. Would you mind hacking off a little piece that I could take home and, you know,
Don't
contemplate?
hack your own pieces off, right? That would be bad.
Right.
People would frown on that.
Yeah, and I don't think that, you know, taking your own scissors or knife into the store is probably...
Probably not the wisest of all choices.
No, and knowing you, you'd take it right out of the center of that bowl.
Well, that might be the spot that I like the best.
Right. Well, if you ask them, I think they might do a little bit better job at cutting it for you.
All right, point made.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I highly advise asking.
All right, so you can get your color samples, your fabric samples, wallpaper samples.
Yes.
Again, not cutting them out of the book.
Not cutting them out of the book. Ask, we can order wallpaper samples for you. They come in various sizes. Some you have to pay for. Some are free. So it's always worth asking. You know, if you find one you think you really like, then I advise getting a little sample of it to put in your color portfolio. At least then you kind of know what direction you might head into at some point.
Because you start this way before you've even got a project on the horizon. You know, you might have a project 2 months down the road.
Start today.
Now. You know, whether you've got something coming up or not, this is going to be more effective the sooner you start. Because what you're trying to do is just compile things that you like. Magazine articles you see that have a picture of a particular color or anything that you find goes into this folder. That's step 1. That's accumulating all of these things. The other step, the second step, which is even more important, well, I guess I can't say more, because if you don't have anything in the folder,
then
the second step doesn't
is pointless.
All right. You don't have to say it with such vehemence and violence and, Yes. Okay. So it's not more important. It's equally as important. And
Yes.
it's weeding out the stuff that you
Right.
don't like.
Right.
So it's a matter of going through it from time to time.
Yes. Take out the things that were just a trend that you find you really aren't that drawn to. You know, the color of the year right now is simply white. It's a great color, kind of goes with everything. But there are some things, you know, a few years ago that, you know, weren't necessarily so brilliant. You know, bright colors.
They were brilliant. They were
Oh,
like insanely
yeah.
brilliant.
Right. So weed out the things that you don't like. Every 2-3 months, maybe 6 months, just keep up on it and take out those things that you really don't like. You thought you liked it when you put it in there, but now it's not really what you were going for. And be sure that you're not weeding it out because it doesn't fit the project that you're coming up
Right.
on.
Great point.
Keep it because, you know, down the road you might come upon that project.
If you like it, keep it. Even
Right.
if it doesn't work for this particular project, even if
Right.
you're not sure where you would put it.
Yep.
That's not the point right now.
Right.
The point is just gathering what you like, keep that in
Right.
there, but get the other stuff out.
Right. Well, and in a 3-ring binder, you can do those little tabbed things, and I'm a big fan of tabs and organizing things, so I would probably have a kitchen tab and a bathroom tab and a bedroom tab and, you know, just a plain color tab. Well, gee, I like all of these colors, but, you know, in my bedroom tab, I might have bed frames that I like and lamps and rugs and all the other things, you know, not just the
Sure.
color, but I might have some color things in there as
Just
well.
a separate tab and in an
Right.
accordion folder as well. That
Right.
would work the
It
same
just
way,
helps
right?
you organize, and that way you're thinking about different spaces and things you like for those spaces, and you're not thinking about just the one project and throwing everything else out. Right.
Move it out.
Yep.
So we've got a literal physical folder that we can put these things in.
Right.
There's got to be online sources that will do the same thing, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's, as we talked about last week, there's house.com, which is a fantastic resource for doing this same sort of thing. Pinterest, both places will let you do kind of idea books. On House, it's called an idea book. On Pinterest, obviously, it's a board. But you just put in there things that you like. You know, you can have an idea board. I have one on my House website that has dog things because I have a dog and, you know, I want to someday have a dog washing station. So I have this idea board that has those and some that have, you know, lights that I like and just all kinds of different things. So it's a great place to go and put all of these ideas, much like your color portfolio.
And that's house.com.
Right.
Houzz, right?
Correct.
House.com.
House. Yes. And then obviously most people are familiar with Pinterest. It's the same kind of thing. Boards. House, you can only take things from their website that are on their website to
There's
put
a
on
lot
your idea
there, though.
boards. There
Tons
are
of things there.
thousands, hundreds of thousands of things there.
So it's not like you're sorely limited there, but
right,
still.
Right. But, you know, Pinterest, you can pull
The
from
world is at your fingertips there.
quite literally. So yeah, they're great resources to do kind of the same thing as the color portfolio, but do it online.
Okay, so let's talk about, you've got all these pictures or things you've accumulated on Pinterest.
Yes.
Now, you're not getting specific color references at this point.
Sometimes you do.
You might.
Sometimes you don't.
Okay.
It's kind of hit or miss.
So let's say we've got pictures of a room where a pillow or whatever has the color that we really like. That
Right.
jumped out at us.
Right.
How do we go and turn that into actual paint chips? What's a good way to go about doing that?
Now you want to take your color portfolio and you want to bring it to the paint store with you. You know, if you show us kind of where you're going, where you're headed, you know, I'm looking for a gray color, you know, kind of a medium gray, not too light, not too dark, right in the middle. Then, okay, you know, this is your gray area right here. You know, these are going to be your bluish grays. These are going to be your greenish grays. Will help you find all the undertones and you can say, oh no, I don't like that, but I do like this other one. So
A lot of people are nervous too. They're confused at the color
Right.
rack. They're not
Right.
sure where they want to go, so they figure, how can we help them?
right.
And yet it's what we do. Day in and day out, we're in the store helping people find those colors,
Yes.
and you'll be surprised how quickly just a few questions we can ask will help
Right.
us understand. And especially if you've got a color folder or some
Right.
ideas with you, ask us. We'll be able to help you
Yes.
narrow it down and save you a lot of time and a lot of frustration, because
Right.
standing at the display trying to solve these problems on your own, when you do this, once in a
Right.
while, people don't do this on a regular basis.
Right.
We do.
Right.
So moving on, we want to talk about the next step. So first we've talked about two practical ways that you can go and start putting colors together. You found inspiration outside, magazines, things like that. You've put them in these color folders. You've tagged them in your Pinterest boards and your house idea boards, right?
Ooh,
and
you're good.
I'm getting smarter. It's the third time we've done this. And then you remove them out. Remove them out. Take them out.
Yes.
Remove them out seems redundant. That is redundant.
little
It doesn't
bit.
just seem redundant. There's no seam about it. That's redundant. So anyway, you've pulled them out. Those are some practical ways. Now you've got it narrowed down. Now you're kind of closing in on some colors. Now we're going to shift into some practical steps that you can do to make sure that the colors you choose are colors that you like. And the first one that we want to hit on almost doesn't sound like it should be here. And it's giving yourself time, scheduling yourself time so you don't rush.
Right.
Because rushing is really, really bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think I've got a story about that I'm going to try to retell.
Right.
So here's the scoop. When we started working on this podcast and sketching out the notes, I realized this is a great spot for a story. Great spot where I could highlight something dumb I've done,
Right, because we all like dumb Dan stories.
Who doesn't? But I was trying to think, there's got to be something that I've done. The concept here is rash decisions end with bad results, right? So I'm trying to think, what have I done? I spent all of last night trying to think of some rash decision I made.
Right.
And I can't believe it, but I've got nothing.
I'm so surprised by that because you have kids.
I know.
How do you not have...
And I'm me. And you would think that there's rash decisions. And I'm sure there are.
How did you not send your kids out in something that they shouldn't have been going out in or something? Rash decision.
You would think.
That's incredible.
I couldn't come up with anything.
Right.
So it was very frustrating for me. And then so this morning I'm getting ready for work and I'm taking much longer than normal because I'm thinking about all of this.
Right.
And it's wonderful how God works.
Yes.
Because in delaying and going too slow, because I was thinking about needing a rash decision that I made, I ended up getting way behind. And I looked at the clock and I realized how late I was. Right. Now I've got kids to get to school. I've got things to do. I've got to move. Right. And so I realized I'm going to have to really multitask. I'm going to have to go very fast to get this working. Right. So I start shaving, and I'm going like crazy. It's almost like Jack the Ripper. The blades are just flying.
Yikes.
And as I'm doing that, I happen to look in the mirror, and I see something. This random hair that's jutting out from my eyebrow. It's like old man has said it.
I was going to say, so you had the old man eyebrows going on, where they just kind of go every which way, and some are really long.
Yeah, this one was really long. So I'm going to fix that. If I hadn't been running behind, I might have opted for, possibly wiser removal techniques. Like tweezers or, maybe scissors or something like that. So I didn't, because I'm holding a razor, a shaving razor in my hand.
This is not going to end well.
And so I thought, this is going to be quick and easy. I'm going to just, a little voice in my head says, it'll be easy. Just whip that over it.
You should know better than to listen to that voice.
That little voice is so convincing. So I did. Whipped it over my eyebrow, and it took the thing clean off. Not my eyebrow, but just, that hair. Completely gone.
Gone. Problem solved.
Problem solved. So I go to rinse the razor out, and I look at the counter, and I see all these little hairs scattered around. And I thought, oh, my goodness, where did that all come from? And I look up, and there is a not quite a dime-sized patch, but just smaller than a dime-sized patch in the center of my eyebrow. That's completely...
Wait, this was in the center?
In the center of my eyebrow.
I've been staring at your eyebrow trying to figure out where
it's the wrong spot. It's the center. I should take I got to tell the rest of the story. So I completely removed the entire center of my eyebrow, which is horrible. I mean, so I look at it, and my first reaction literally was I scooped all the little hairs into my hand. And I really honestly thought there's got to be a way to put them back on, glue them on, lay them over. I didn't need them to be stuck in, just matted over, kind of covering the white. And so I'm squinting at it, and oh gosh, it's as terrible as it looks. And so I can't glue them on. I'm not stupid, right? And so I'm trying to think there's got to be another solution. And then it dawns on me. The obvious solution is makeup, right? I mean, that's the solution.
Obvious solution to women.
Well, these were desperate times, Betsy.
Right.
These were desperate times.
Desperate measures.
And so I got out what would you think that was? An eyeliner pen? Is that the right way to say that?
Well, they do make eyebrow pencils. It's for penciling in the correct brown color of your eyebrow. So I don't know what you found.
I found a crayon-like thing, and I mushed it over my head. And then the problem was it was way too dark. So it looked like I had, like a huge mole or something there. A beauty mark, right?
Sure.
Is that what that would be?
Okay, Cindy Crawford.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, I've got this huge brown spot on my eyebrow. I smudged it out until it kind of blended.
Right.
And I was good to go. I made it look all right. Rash decisions are terrible.
Will you be sad to know that there is something that you could have done instead of like...
What?
They make a clear mascara stuff that if you put it over your eyebrow, it'll lay all that stuff down.
So I could have fixed the problem?
No, you could have done that instead of shaving it off.
Well, I'll maybe invest in some of that next time,
Yeah,
Betsy.
you
Thanks
might
for being
want to.
too little too late
You're
there.
welcome.
Long story to get to the rash decisions never end well.
Right.
So how in the world does all of that tie in with what we're talking about?
What we're talking about is not making decisions quickly, not waiting until your painter gets there and saying, oh, I have to pick a paint color. My painter's here. And coming into the paint store and looking at 5 different beiges and then picking the first one you saw and then having him paint it and you hate it. Make sure that you come in ahead of time, at least a couple weeks ahead of time. Take some samples home to make sure that they are actually colors that you like. Don't wait and make a last minute decision, because 9 times out of 10, people are sorry that they do that.
Right. We see that a lot. They come in, they've got a project that they've got to have done in the next, couple of days. Open houses, that always happens in, know, as that part of the graduation
June
thing
is
starts
coming.
to hit. Yeah. Plan now. You don't want to be the weekend of trying to pick colors.
Right.
You're not going to end up with something that you like. So give yourself the time.
Right.
The next thing would be, what do you do with the time? Now you've got the time, you've taken the chips home, but these things are, the tiny little chips. How in the world do you get a color? Or how do you find out if you're going to like that color or not from these tiny little chips?
Well, now we've got these cool things, We didn't used to have these when I started in this business. It was, pick a color from the chip and hope you like it. Now we have these cool sample pints from Benjamin Moore. So if you're picking a Benjamin Moore color, you can get these sample pints. They're $7, so it's cheap insurance that you like the color that, you're going to choose eventually. If it's a RepcoLite, you have to buy a quart, but it's not that much more for the quart of RepcoLite paint. So not to worry. You can still make a sample, and I would absolutely recommend that you do that, because otherwise you're not getting a good vision of what this color actually is. And then take it home and paint it out.
So when we talk about painting it out, now I'm going to ask a question that I know the answer to, because I want to convey the idea that I do have, yes, I didn't record the show. I got that.
Right.
Yes, I shaved my eyebrow off.
Yes. So that's
duly noted.
Yeah.
But I do sometimes know what I'm talking about. But I'm going to set you up so you can look even smarter,
that's so
because I'm a
kind of
gentleman.
you.
Yes, exactly. So you've got these color samples, and when you look on the websites, almost all over the place, blog entries, blog posts where people talk about this, the pictures that they show are people painting squares and circles and all these different spots all over their walls.
Right.
What do you think about that? Is that a smart idea?
It's the worst nightmare ever.
That is such a bold declaration. You're going to have to follow that up with some
You
proof.
don't want to paint all of these spots all over your wall, because then you're going to run into nothing but issues. There are a few reasons that you don't want to do that. First, you're going to have all of these samples, and it's really hard to choose one that you like when you're seeing them all together, because one will influence the next one. It's kind of like looking at the color strip. When people look at a whole color strip, lightest to darkest, the color on either side influences how they see the center color. So if you fold those two edges back and you see only the center color, people are amazed at how it looks. So having those swatches all over is just a nightmare, because they're influencing the way you're seeing each one. Plus, you have the color of the wall behind it. It's all around that piece. And most people don't paint huge swatches. It's maybe a foot by a foot, and that's it. Well, that's not a very big swatch when you have a red wall and you're trying to go gray. So all of that red is going to make your gray look a little bit on the pinkish side.
See, we've seen that in the store. I remember a customer who really struggled with this, and finally we figured out what was going on. But they were taking samples home, and they were painting this tan, and they were just convinced the tan was way too pink.
Right.
And they kept having us adjust the quart that they had picked up.
Yep.
And finally, after 3 or 4 adjustments, we figured out they're painting it over a green wall.
Yep.
And they were painting just a section.
Right.
And so the green on the wall, the surrounding wall, so influenced that tan that they were painting, it brought out all the pink. It just showed the contrast so dramatically. Once that was covered, once the green was hidden, the tan looked like what they wanted it to look like in the first place. But the green really influenced it.
Yep. Well, and another thing to think about when you decide to put swatches all over your wall, that has to get fixed before you can paint over it. So if you've hired a painter, you, unless you happen to do it yourself, are going to be paying him to sand out all of those spots to make it completely smooth like the rest of the wall. He may have to prime over it depending on
the colors,
what color it is.
Exactly.
So you're causing a whole lot more work. You're paying him more, and you're making more work for yourself.
If you do it yourself, there's more work there because
Right.
a lot of the time, and in fact, not just a lot of the times, but you need to make sure you put on at least 2 coats.
Right.
If you're looking and trying to evaluate a
Yep.
color, because one coat will typically allow too much of that base color, whatever was on
Right.
the wall previously, to come through and influence it.
Yep.
So even if you put one coat on, you might find you like the color,
Right.
but when you get 2 coats on, that's not the color you were looking at or evaluating.
Right.
So 2 coats are required, which
Yep.
builds even more.
Right.
And when you roll solid paint over that, if you don't take care of that ahead of time, you're going to see all of those sections.
Yep.
So
Right.
all that sanding is required.
Yes.
So don't put it on the wall.
Right.
There's another reason where you can't even move it around when it's on your
Right.
wall. Unless you cut great big sections out of the wall, but you don't
Right.
want to do that.
No.
So much patching involved.
Right.
So much extra work. Why not just put it on a poster board? Doesn't that make more sense?
Yeah. Poster board or
Who
a piece
suggested
of
cutting the
heavy-
wall apart anyway? That is so dumb.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think that was you.
Probably.
Probably. So yeah, go out, get some poster board. Make sure you paint it edge to edge, top to bottom, the whole thing.
Now, why does the edge to edge matter?
Well, because otherwise you're seeing that white all the way around it, and in theory, usually you're only seeing maybe the bottom, which is going to be white if you have painted trim. Otherwise, you won't be seeing any white. So that's going to influence
the white
how you're
influences
seeing that
again.
color.
Okay.
Yep. So, and it gives you more space to work with. So you can move it around different times of the day and night, look at it in different lighting. But the cool thing about, a poster board and not cardboard, let me put this out there. Don't use cardboard because the first coat soaks in and cardboard is brown. And
Okay,
it
so you mean
gives
typical brown cardboard.
Right. It gives you a funny color when you put colors on it. It makes it darker and muddier, and it's not going to look the way it should. So make sure that you use a white poster board or a cream color, something very neutral.
See, I like that
underneath.
even better because I've read and heard people recommend hunks of drywall. Not pulled out of the wall, but actual hunks of drywall.
You
but
can do that.
What a mess.
Well,
where
it's
this
a mess, but the other thing, it's bringing
Sure,
me to my next point.
exactly.
Thank you for setting me
Well,
up. That was so kind.
Again.
So it brings me to my next point. A piece of drywall, and well, I guess you can score it down the center, but again, you're going to have a big old mess as you're moving it around. But a piece of poster board, you can fold in half, and you can set it in a corner, and that gives you a better idea of what 2 walls are going to look like. When you get 2 walls side by side, you know more how they're going to look because you're not reflecting the color that your wall is now off of the new color that you think you want. So by folding it and putting it in a corner, you can better see how your color is going to look.
Sure. Now, if you've got red walls and you put a tan, what you're saying is you take a tan or whatever color you've rolled
Right.
onto this poster board, put that into the corner or whatever. That red from the other wall, the opposite
Right.
wall, or the
adjacent wall?
adjacent. Look at that.
Another
That's a
point
point
for
for you.
me.
So we're in our next duel of wits.
Right.
You're up 1 to
Round
nothing.
2.
1 to nothing.
Yes.
Okay, best of 7.
Okay.
So anyway, you put that in that corner. It's going to pull the red, or at least the red will
Right.
influence it.
Right.
You're saying fold it, put it in there so you see the tan or whatever
Right.
color on both of these walls, the adjacent walls.
Right, especially with those lighter colors like beiges and
Sure.
tans,
It's
taupes,
really going to pull that
grays.
darker.
Yeah, and it reflects that red and it makes things look pink, and people freak out when they see that. And it's just, a lot of people don't realize it's just a reflection from something else. And it could be blue if you have a blue chair in your room, or every other wall is blue like Dan's house. Then you might see
She's
blue in a
referencing our
color.
first podcast where I talked about how I liked blue, and she won't let that die
And
either.
painted all of his house.
She just harps
blue.
on it all day long.
I just
Walks
think
past
it's
the
funny.
office and lets everybody know.
Right. Dan's the master of blue. If you
I'm
need a blue
really-
color, Dan's your man.
Well, I've one blue color, but it's a
Oh.
really good one.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So paint poster board, larger samples. You can move it around, see it behind different pieces of furniture, put it in the corner,
Right.
all kinds of different ways that you can get a much better look at your color.
Right.
So we've got that going. That segues nicely into a topic where we want to talk about lighting.
There are all kinds of, different bulbs out there. I go to the home centers and, looking for whatever, obviously not paint or painting supplies or wallpaper. But, I'm looking for whatever, lumber or whatever. And they have these huge displays of light bulb upon light bulb and, soft white and, whatever white and daylight. And, there are all these different colors. And what most people don't realize is that light bulb and the color that it comes out makes all the difference in how you perceive your color and how it actually looks to you.
Right. We have one of the manager at our, he just retired last year or so, but at our Jennison store, he talked about, he had a customer call him, and she was very upset, concerned, not upset necessarily, but just it was a very frustrating situation. She had painted 2 rooms with the same color.
Right.
So she's got the same color paint in 2 rooms.
Right.
And in one room, the first one, it looked great. She loved it. It worked well with the trim, with the carpet, with the window treatments. It all looked great.
Right.
The second room, it looked terrible. She absolutely hated it. So we've got, 2 completely opposite reactions. She loved it in the one, despised it, hated it, and loathed it in the other one. A similar emotion you felt when I told you the podcast didn't record. It was a similar...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was more heartbreaking than
there was loathing in there. There was loathing in there, I hope.
Maybe.
Or your heartbreak look is terribly scary. So anyway, she loathed it.
Right.
So she's calling the store. What's going on? Because... the kicker is that the carpet was the same in both rooms, the fabric was the same, the paint was the same, and the trim was the same. Everything was identical, except her reaction to the rooms. Turns out it's the light bulb.
Yep.
He dug into that, asked a few questions. She checked the rooms out. Sure enough, one had a yellower tone. It was an incandescent bulb, which gave off a yellower glow.
Yep.
The other one was a compact fluorescent
Yep.
with a little bit of a bluer tone.
Yep.
And it completely changed the look. Once she changed light bulbs, everything was great.
Right.
So you've got light bulbs to consider, but we can't forget the natural lighting, the sun, and just even as the earth rotates, as we move through the different seasons, as we, different times of day, the exposure of your home, where is it a southern exposure or western exposure of a particular room, dramatically affected by the daylight coming in.
Yep.
So what you want to do is make sure you look at it in multiple situations.
Right. I have a great story for that.
Is it funny?
It is. Well, it's kind of funny, but it's kind of...
it's just a good
it's
story.
It's mind-blowing a little bit.
Well, I'll prepare to be amazed.
All right. Hold on to your seat.
I'm going to hold the points over here, and we'll see if you get any.
Okay. I'm sure I will. So, a few years ago, I had a lady. I had picked color for her. She loved the sage green color. Now, for those not in the know, sage green is kind of a grayish green, a real soft, calming green. Not, bright, shock me green. It's not spring green, grass green, leaf green, anything like that. It's very calming. So she has it all painted, and she loves it. This is her favorite color. It's in her living room. Now, her home sits in a kind of wooded area. There are trees all along the back side of her home, which is where the living room is. Little creek back there, and there's a huge sliding glass door for almost one whole wall of this back wall of the home.
Wow.
Right. So, color's fine. A few months later, she calls me and she said, you won't believe this. She goes, we have a problem. And I'm like, uh-oh.
Everybody loves that phone call, right?
I hate that. And I'm thinking, okay, what happened? I'm thinking the paint's peeling off the walls and sheets, or
what's going on?
I don't even know what to expect. And she said, this color is lime green. And right. How can that color be lime green? And I didn't believe her. She said, you got to come see it. So, okay. I go to her home. She said, now, it's only the certain period of the day.
Seriously?
And I'm like, really? Certain period of the day? She goes, it's exactly 23 minutes. I'm like, oh
really?
So you've timed it.
So she's got a time frame and
right.
everything.
There's a time frame. So I arrive there before said time frame. And we stand there, and she's looking at her watch, and she keeps looking, and she goes, okay, any minute now. And she looks, and she goes, get ready. Okay, right about, now. And she wasn't kidding. The sun is the right angle at the right time of day, and there are these bright green, I think it was like later summer, so the leaves haven't turned yet, but they are bright lime green with the sun coming through them at just that right angle, you know, how you look up and the leaves are all, you know, kind of glittery almost. And the reflection off of those leaves onto the one wall of her home in that one little area is lime green.
So just one wall?
One wall.
The whole wall or just a section of the wall?
Just the section until you hit the shadowy part where, you know, the light doesn't
completely different green from everything else.
It looked like, you know, we drew this funny little outline on the wall and painted it a different color. You know, things like that, just the outside can do more than you know. And that's not to scare you away from the color because, you know, it lasted, you know, I said, well, what do you want to do? Well, I love this color. I just won't be in here for 23 minutes.
It's easy to avoid a room for 23 minutes.
In the springtime,
it was perfect.
And in the fall, you don't see that. So, you know, it's not to scare people away from it, but you just have to be aware of these things and don't panic. Just know that there are some things that are beyond our control and yours.
So the big thing with lighting is to just make sure, again, if you've given yourself the time, you can look at it in your home in different lighting situations. Check it out in the room at the time that you're typically going to be in those rooms. That's a prime time to make sure that the color looks like what you want it to.
Right.
Check it out during the rest of the day. Make sure as the light moves through, you know, move your sample around.
Right.
When we hit evening, bring up the lights in the room. Find out what it does with those. You just want to make sure that you're double checking. Not everything can be solved that way.
Right.
You know, we're going to run into certain times where it's
There's
just
nothing
like
you can
this.
do
It's the
about it.
lime green wall.
Right.
But you like it most of the other times.
Right.
The big thing here is you just don't want to go in blind.
Yep.
We have way too many people that make the decision, buy the paint, and put the work in. So you've got the expense of the paint, you've got the time that I spent rolling it all out, and then you find out the minute you turn the lights on at night, you hate it.
Right. There's nothing worse than that feeling of thinking you love it, and then, you turn on the light and hate it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, there is another line. Now, you were talking about this the other day about Benjamin Moore has is it Color Stories?
Yes. Benjamin Moore has this great line of colors. They're called Color Stories, and they're what they call full spectrum colors. Now, full spectrum colors, you know, we're scaring you with this, you know, changing color thing, but full spectrum colors are meant to do that to a certain extent. These colors are made without black and without gray. So even if you choose a gray color, there's no black in it. To substitute for that, they put in red and green and blue and yellow and every other color that they have.
All these other tints.
Right, that make up that gray color. So when you put it in a room and paint all the walls, it's going to reflect those little bits of color as you put other things with it. So if you put a red chair with it, it's going to reflect a little tiny bit of that red, and it's going to give it a warmer, rosy kind of color. If you put blue with it, it's going to be a little bit cooler and reflect that blue. They're beautiful colors. They really are fantastic. So don't be scared. That's what they're supposed to do. It just gives you a little bit more depth in your color.
And that's Color Stories.
It's Color Stories, yep.
Now, it's only available in Benjamin Moore's Aura, correct?
Correct.
Now, Aura is the top of their line, premium.
Yes. $70 a gallon.
It's expensive, a little expensive.
But it's fantastic.
It's worth it.
It is.
One of the big reasons, the big pluses, I mean, there's any number of reasons to use Aura, but one of the most practical that people can, you know, relate to right away is the fact that it covers so well.
Fantastic.
Much better than other colors. I had one particular time in one of our stores, I stopped in, and a customer was at the counter picking up another quart. It turned out to be her fifth quart.
Oh, my.
Fifth quart of our Hallmark paint. And it was in a deep red. Reds are notorious for very poor coverage. So she's getting this fifth quart, and I happened to talk to her, and that's, of course, how the fifth quart came out.
Right.
But she explained the situation. Just a tiny little area that she's trying to put as an accent above a stairway, and she's on her fifth coat trying to make this red cover.
Smokes.
And I asked her, you know, it's too bad we didn't go to Aura.
Right.
And she said, oh, it was recommended. You know, the people tried to get her to do that, but it was more expensive. She wanted to go with the Hallmark, which was about $5. Is it about $5? Is it more than that now?
It's probably about $7.
Okay, $7 cheaper. So she went with the one to save $7.
Right.
Now she's on her fifth quart.
Right.
And you know she was laughing too. She'd blown a lot more extra money.
Right.
But the sad thing was, in time, that was the thing that was the killer. It was above a stairway. So it's not just
the place
roll
you
it
wanna be.
right. She had to create this little scaffold area so she could get up there. And I think from this point on, she'll always use Aura. When it comes to these hard-to-cover colors, Aura is definitely worth the money. And it sounds like such a huge payoff up front.
Right.
I mean, such a huge payout
Right.
up front.
Right.
But in the end, it's a huge payoff. Look at what I did there with the
Wow,
words.
that was
I wish I
good.
hadn't tripped in the
Right.
beginning. But
Right. That would have made it better.
It would have made it better, but it
Yep.
was still adequate.
Right.
So anyway, Aura is expensive, yes, but it's
Right.
definitely worth it.
Now, don't get us wrong. Our paint is very good, but there are some colors, those reds, dark blues, greens, yellows, it's just you can't get them to cover. No other company can get them to cover.
Right, it's not just us. It's
right.
Any company struggles with yellows and reds and some of these deep clean. The cleaner or the brighter a color is, the harder it gets to cover.
Right.
All right, so that brings us to the last thing that we wanted to highlight, and it's basically an idea that rolls around this topic, the danger and the importance of asking for opinions. Now, let's start with the danger of asking for opinions. For example, if I would ask you how well I did running the equipment today, your opinion could be
terrible.
Yeah, exactly. So when you ask opinions, generally people don't hold back, right? They're happy to give you an opinion.
Yep.
So when it comes to colors, we're very tempted, especially
to
as
ask
we
all
struggle,
of our friends.
to ask for help, ask for ideas.
Yep.
And we always hope, at least I always think when I'm asking, I always think that you're going to recommend what I'm leaning towards.
Right.
Because it seems so obvious to me.
Right.
And every time I ask an opinion, I find no, they give the exact opposite opinion,
Right.
and it leaves me more confused.
Right.
So you've got that to deal with. You ask opinions, you get all these opinions, and now
Right.
you're trying to figure out what to do.
Opinions. Everyone has one.
Everybody does.
Yes, they do.
I remember this older couple, and I'll never forget them because they came in so sad. I mean, people, they don't skip into the store all the time.
Right.
You might think that's true because it is a pretty happy place to be. But these people almost slumped in, they were so sad. And I thought, what's going on? And of course, I started helping them, and I was trying to think, what do I do? It's like they're going to cry. What is
Get
some
the
horrible
tissues ready.
tragedy? Yeah, it's some horrible tragedy happened. And the lady kind of slides the color chips towards me, and they were horrible. And I thought, I don't understand what's happening here. And she said, we need these. Well, she didn't talk like that. Sorry, ma'am. She said, we need these. Well, I can't do a voice. We need these. Let's just leave it at that.
Wow. Yeah, you should just.
She was a wonderful lady. They need these colors
I see.
because her decorator recommended them. And then she follows it up with the words, that made this stick in my mind. We hate them, but she says we need them. And so I thought, what do we do? I don't want to undercut the decorator.
Right.
But I also hate to sell somebody paint that they're already hating in the store. Typically, it doesn't go uphill from there.
Yeah.
That's a bad start.
Uh-huh.
And yet, that's what they did. They took the paint the way the decorator recommended, and of course, they were back 2 weeks later because they hated it.
Right. Well, and that puts us in a hard place when a decorator chooses something and you haven't said to them, I don't like that. Don't be afraid to open up and tell them what you do and don't like, and tell them explicitly what you don't like. I don't like this color. I think it's too red. And if you've done your homework and done this color portfolio beforehand, when you first meet with them, you can say, I've done a little bit of research and a little bit of digging, and these are the things that, I'm drawn to. So they know what colors you lean towards and, what fabrics. They know where you're headed so that they can help you down that road. Because too often they have nowhere to start and they just, they really aren't decorating for themselves. They're trying to decorate for you, but if you don't give them feedback, they don't know.
That just helps so much. They'll appreciate it. You'll get started on the right track.
Right.
And that all goes back to, like you're saying, that color portfolio. If you've done that work,
Right.
you can give them that insight right off the bat. Save everybody time and get moving.
And, we're not saying don't ask your friends, because all the friends out there are going to be like, oh, but I wanted to give my opinion. But at least you know where you're headed with something. You know what you really like, and you can ask for opinions once you've narrowed it down. Gee, I love both of these colors. What do you think? That's the time to ask for opinions. Not in the very beginning when everybody's got a different opinion. Ask it at the very end when you're really stuck between two things.
Right.
You live there.
That's
they
the thing.
don't.
Remember that. If you remember nothing else from this, remember that concept. It's your home. You live there. They get to go home. They can recommend whatever, but they get to leave.
You hate
you
green,
have to
and
stay.
they go home to a greenhouse.
Exactly. So pay attention to that. It's your home. So, we talked about the danger of asking for opinions.
Double-edged sword.
Now there's the importance of it. We got to remember that just doing what you like doesn't get you anywhere sometimes.
Right.
You can stagnate in your decorating. It can become boring.
Yeah.
It can seem like it's the same old thing because you're always staying in your comfort zone. Right. Stretching outside of that, listening to some other opinions, even if they throw a color out at you that you're really not comfortable with, don't immediately discard it. We're not saying that either. You got to find this balance between the two. And one great option would be to sample some of these colors in smaller doses.
So I saw this magazine article the other day, and they showed a room, and it was a pretty, what I would call boring room, a rug on the floor.
No blue on the walls anywhere.
No, it was kind of a beigey gray wall. It was hard to tell by the picture what color the walls actually were.
So just a very plain, very boring.
Very neutral, nothing special. And on the beginning page, they showed all of these colors that they wanted to bring in. Some aquas and some greens, and it was just...
So some very bold colors.
Yeah, very bold, gorgeous colors together. And so what they did is they completely changed the look of this room. They put down a new rug. They added some texture in the rug. Good thing to do. You don't have to add color, add texture as well. They brought in some teal... aqua kind of drapes in there. They brought in throw pillows that were in colors. They brought in lots of plants, like living plants. So they brought in all this green. They had some nature art that they hung up all over the walls. They completely changed the look of the room while keeping the most expensive parts. The furniture, all they did were change drapes and bring in some other small things. So that's a good way to test color. If you're unsure, gee, I think I like, this bright cobalt blue, but, I'm really not sure, how long I'll like it. Test it out on something smaller like that.
It's such an inexpensive way to take a risk.
Right.
And yet find out, maybe that really does it for you, or it makes that room, pulls it together. Because we were looking at that picture, and that room looked... From scene to scene, shot to shot, looked completely different. Right. Even though and they left it all in the same setup for the most part.
They switched two pieces of furniture around. Right.
But for the most part, the room was
a
very low expense to pull this in. The rug was expensive, I'm sure, and some of the plants. But to change the room as dramatically as they did,
and it's not as much time spent. They didn't spend a couple days doing their walls, painting them, and whatever else they had to do. It's just a little bit of time going out, picking up the things, and putting them in the space.
So basically, the bottom line with this one is just remember you live there. We run into people, I don't want to belabor this point, but something important is we run into people in the store who feel guilty, literally guilty because I'm not doing a new color trend or something that's new and happening. But don't feel guilty about that. If that's not what you're drawn to, you live there. Right. That's where the bottom line is. But don't be afraid to stretch out and bring in some of these new colors in little doses that you can easily change.
At least twice a week, I have someone come in and ask me what the color trends are because they're looking for paint colors. Mm-hmm. And I always look at them and say, I will show you, but that doesn't mean that that's what you paint. Right. You paint what you like. It doesn't matter what the trend is.
You're trying to make a space that feels like you, that reflects your personality, that reflects the personality of your family or whoever lives there.
Well, I guess that should just about do it for today. The overall point that we wanted to convey is this. Finding the perfect color isn't always easy, but it's not really as difficult as you may think. If you put some of the ideas that we talked about today into practice, you'll find that your next color choices are absolutely perfect for you and you will love them.
Thanks, Betsy. And before we go, we'd like to thank all of you for listening. Now, you can find our show notes for this and previous episodes at RepcoLite.com. Just click the Color Me Home link on the home menu and then select the podcast option. From there, you can listen to previous episodes and you can subscribe to our podcast via our RSS feed. Check it out and don't forget to share the episodes on Facebook, on Pinterest, Twitter, and whatever other social media you might be using. Your friends are going to thank you later. Until next time, thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Color Me Home, sponsored by RepcoLite Paints and Benjamin Moore. Everything discussed in this episode can be found in our show notes at RepcoLite.com. Just click the Color Me Home tab on the home page. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, you can contact Betsy and Dan by email. The address is colormehome@RepcoLite.com. That's Color Me Home at RepcoLite.com.